The night shift at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station in Nevada was usually quiet. Most operators spent their time watching endless streams of data from the outer solar system, occasionally noting a passing comet or asteroid. But tonight was different. Tom Wilson rubbed his eyes and looked at his screen again. The energy readings from the edge of the solar system made no sense. They showed patterns that didn't match anything in their database. Not solar activity, not natural phenomena, and certainly not human vessels. "Hey, Mike, take a look at this," Tom called to his supervisor. Mike Roberts walked over, coffee cup in hand, and leaned in to examine the readings. His cup stopped halfway to his mouth, and the coffee grew cold, forgotten. "Call the director," Mike said quietly. Now, within hours, every major space agency on Earth was analyzing the data. The energy signatures matched what theorists had predicted would appear from damaged faster-than-light drives. There was no doubt about it. They were looking at a fleet of disabled starships. Director Laura Hayes stood before the United Space Command Emergency Council, her presentation showing the latest scans. "We're looking at approximately 15 vessels, all showing similar damage patterns. They're drifting at the edge of our solar system, just past Neptune's orbit. Hostile?" asked General Thompson, leaning forward in his chair. "If they were hostile, they wouldn't be broadcasting mathematical sequences on open channels," Laura replied. "They're trying to communicate, and from what we can tell, they're in trouble." The mathematical sequences were simple at first: prime numbers, then basic equations. Earth's scientists responded in kind, and within 48 hours, they had established a rough form of communication. The aliens called themselves the Meridians, and they were refugees. The U.S. Defender, Earth's most advanced long-range vessel, made first visual contact 3 days later. Captain Robert Banks stood on his bridge, watching the main screen as they approached the alien fleet. The ships were massive. Elegant silver vessels that curved like leaves, each one larger than any spacecraft humans had ever built. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Price at Communications. "The biggest one must be at least 3 miles long." The Meridian ships hung motionless against the backdrop of stars, their usually gleaming hulls dark except for occasional flickers of emergency lighting. Through their basic mathematical communications, they had learned that a massive solar flare from a nearby star had damaged their quantum drive systems. The entire fleet, carrying over 50,000 Meridians, was stranded. As the Defender moved closer, they received their first visual transmission from the Meridian flagship. The aliens appeared on screen, and a hushed silence fell over the bridge. They were tall, elegant beings with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer like their ships. Their large eyes were adapted to the dim light of their home world, and they moved with a fluid grace that suggested their species had evolved in a low-gravity environment. The Meridian leader, who humans would come to know as the first speaker, began communicating through a combination of mathematical equations and simple pictographs displayed on a screen behind them. The message was clear. Their advanced drive systems were failing, and with them, their life support. Without help, the entire fleet would be dead within weeks. Captain Banks sent an immediate report back to Earth. The response was unanimous. Humanity would help. Despite the Meridians' clearly superior technology, they were now in humanity's backyard, and Earth would not stand by while 50,000 beings faced death in the cold of space. "Tell them help is coming," Banks ordered. "Use whatever mathematical or visual means necessary. They need to know they're not alone out here." As the message was sent, Banks looked out at the massive alien fleet. The Meridians had probably never imagined needing help from a species that had barely reached its own moon. But sometimes the universe had a strange sense of humor, and now humanity had a chance to prove itself to the stars. The first speaker's response came quickly, a simple mathematical sequence that translated roughly to acknowledgement and gratitude. As Banks watched the exchange, he couldn't help but smile. Humanity's first major contact with an alien species wouldn't be a battle or a trade negotiation. It would be a rescue mission. Earth was about to show the galaxy what humans did best, solving problems that seemed impossible, using whatever means necessary. The real work was about to begin. The U.S. Endeavour approached the massive Meridian fleet, its engines glowing softly against the darkness of space. As Earth's best engineering vessel, it carried a crew of 300, including 50 of humanity's top engineers and scientists. Their mission was clear: figure out how to save 50,000 stranded aliens with technology far beyond human understanding. Captain James Miller stood on the bridge, watching as his ship pulled alongside the Meridian flagship. "It's like parking a rowboat next to a cruise ship," he muttered, noting how the Endeavour was barely the size of the alien vessel's engine section. Dr. Anna Thompson, the chief engineer, studied the readings on her tablet. "Captain, their power systems are failing faster than they told us. The biggest ship has maybe 2 weeks of life support left, not 3. Can we dock with them?" Miller asked. "Their docking systems are completely different from ours," Thompson replied. She paused, then added, "But I have an idea. It's not elegant, but it might work." Within hours, the Endeavour's crew had constructed what looked like a giant tunnel made from emergency hull patches and spare parts. It wasn't pretty, but it created an airtight seal between the two ships. The Meridians watched in what seemed like a mixture of horror and fascination at the humans' primitive solution. When the first team of engineers entered the Meridian ship, they found themselves in a world of advanced technology that seemed almost magical. Holographic displays floated in the air, and the walls themselves seemed alive with flowing energy patterns. But underneath the beauty, the ship was dying. Their quantum drive suffered a complete collapse, Thompson reported, studying the alien engine room. "It's not just damaged, it's dead. And without it, they can't power their main systems." She reached out to touch one of the crystalline structures that once channeled immense energies. It was cold and dark. The Meridian engineers, tall and graceful, watched as the humans crawled through access tunnels and studied control panels. They communicated through a mixture of mathematical formulas and simple drawings, trying to explain their technology to these beings they had considered primitive just days ago. "The problem isn't just the drives," Miller said during the emergency meeting in Endeavour's conference room. "Their whole power system is integrated. When the quantum drives failed, it started a chain reaction. Even their backup systems are failing because they're all connected." Thompson stood up and walked to the display screen. "That's actually good news," she said, drawing confused looks from her colleagues. "Their systems are too advanced, too integrated. But ours are simple, separate, and most importantly, they work." She pulled up a diagram of a human fusion reactor. "We can't fix their quantum drives. We don't understand them. But we can give them power. Good old-fashioned nuclear fusion power. It won't let them travel faster than light, but it will keep their life support running until they can repair their own systems." One of the junior engineers raised his hand. "But their power intake systems are completely different from ours. How can we possibly connect our technology to theirs?" Thompson smiled. "The same way we docked with their ship. We adapt. We improvise. We make it work." The next 12 hours were a flurry of activity. The Endeavour's machine shop worked nonstop, fabricating custom adapters and power couplings. Engineers studied Meridian power systems, looking for any way to connect human technology to alien systems. The Meridians themselves watched in growing amazement as the humans refused to give up, trying solution after solution. Finally, Thompson stood before a jury-rigged combination of human and alien technology. Cables and pipes that were never meant to connect to anything alien now ran from a small fusion reactor to the Meridian ship's power grid. It looked like something built from spare parts, because it was. "Ready for power test," Thompson announced over the radio. Captain Miller watched from the bridge, along with the Meridian first speaker. The alien leader had expressed doubts about this primitive solution, but they had no choice. Their own backup systems were nearly depleted. Thompson pressed the activation sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, lights began to flicker on throughout the Meridian ship, Status displays that had been dark for days came to life. The first speaker's eyes widened as they watched their ship's power levels stabilize for the first time since the accident. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't elegant. But it worked. Humanity had just proven that sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. Now they just had to scale up the operation to save the rest of the fleet. 3 days after the first successful power test, Dr. Thompson stood in front of a group of Meridian engineers, using a laser pointer to explain her latest modification to the power coupling system. The tall aliens watched with what she had learned to recognize as their version of fascination. "Look," she said, pointing to the new design drawn on the whiteboard. "Your ships are used to pure energy from quantum drives. Our fusion reactors produce heat first, then power. So we need to add these conversion units here and here." She drew quick circles on the diagram. The Meridians' silver skin shimmered as they leaned forward to study her work. One of the Meridian engineers, who the humans called Blue due to his slightly blue-tinted skin, stepped forward. Through their now improved communication system, he expressed his concern. "Your solution lacks elegance. It uses 5 times more parts than necessary. It should not work." Thompson smiled. "On Earth, we have a saying. If it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid." The translation took a moment, but when it got through, the Meridians made their chittering sound that humans had learned was laughter. They were beginning to understand human thinking, even if it confused them. In the engine room of the second Meridian ship, Chief Engineer Reed was teaching alien technicians about human repair methods. He held up a piece of metal that had been carefully shaped to connect a human power coupling to an alien energy conduit. "Sometimes the best tool isn't the fanciest one," he explained, watching as his alien students observed his work. "Sometimes it's just a piece of metal and someone who knows how to use it." The Meridians were amazed by how humans could take simple materials and reshape them for complex purposes. Their own technology was mostly grown or fabricated at an atomic level. The idea of physically reshaping materials seemed primitive to them at first, but they couldn't argue with the results. On the bridge of the U.S. Endeavour, Captain Miller received an urgent call. "Captain, we have a problem in Ship 4, Lieutenant Parker reported. "Their secondary life support grid is failing. The backup power isn't getting through." Miller rushed to the troubled ship along with Thompson's team. When they arrived, they found a scene of controlled chaos. The human-made power adapters were working, but the alien power distribution system wasn't accepting the energy fast enough. "It's like trying to fill a swimming pool with a garden hose," Thompson muttered, studying the readings. Then her eyes lit up. "Or maybe that's exactly what we need to do." Over the next 6 hours, Thompson and her team set up multiple smaller power feeds instead of one large one. They basically created a power distribution web, feeding energy into the alien systems from 20 different points instead of one central connection. "Your ship's power grid is too advanced for our big, simple power feed," Thompson explained to the ship's Meridian leader. "So instead of forcing it to accept power our way, we're adapting to how your ship wants to receive it." The Meridian leader watched as power levels across their ship began to stabilize. "You create complex solutions from simple parts," they observed. "We never considered this approach. Our technology has always been perfect." "Perfect can be the enemy of good enough," Thompson replied. "Sometimes you need to get your hands dirty and just make things work." As the humans continued their work, word spread through the Meridian fleet about these strange beings and their unusual methods. Stories were shared about humans crawling through maintenance tubes with basic tools, fixing advanced technology with seemingly primitive methods, and most surprisingly, succeeding. By the end of the week, 5 Meridian ships had been stabilized using human power systems. Each solution was slightly different, adapted to the specific needs and quirks of each ship. Nothing was standardized, nothing was perfect, but everything worked. In their quarters, Thompson and Reed discussed the day's work over coffee. "You know what's funny?" Reed said. "They keep calling our technology primitive, but we're the ones who can fix things when they break. Their perfect systems have no room for error, no way to adapt when something goes wrong. Thompson nodded. Maybe that's humanity's real strength. We're used to things going wrong. We expect it. So we always have a backup plan, or we make one up as we go along. Outside their window, human work crews in spacesuits moved between the massive alien ships, carrying tools and equipment that would have seemed primitive to the Meridians just days ago. But now, those same primitive tools were the key to their survival. The news of Earth's successful rescue efforts spread quickly across the planet. Within days, space agencies and private companies from every major nation were mobilizing their resources. The mission to save 50,000 alien lives had become humanity's first truly unified global project. At the International Space Center in Geneva, Director William Baker addressed representatives from 30 countries. "We've proven we can help them," he said, pointing to the screens showing the first 5 stabilized Meridian ships. "But we need more resources, more ships, and more power systems. We need everything you can give us." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Russia converted 3 cargo vessels into mobile power plants. China offered its newest space station as a temporary safe haven for Meridian crew members. India's space program began mass-producing the power adapters that Dr. Thompson had designed. In orbit around Earth, the massive shipyards that usually built satellites and exploration vessels now worked around the clock. Regular cargo containers were being transformed into emergency-powered units, each one fitted with fusion reactors and Thompson's adaptation systems. "It's not pretty," said Jack Roberts, head of the orbital construction team, as he showed a Meridian observer their work. "But each one of these units can power a section of your ships." The Meridian watched as humans in construction suits welded, cut, and rebuilt with remarkable speed. The observer transmitted their findings back to the fleet. The Meridians were amazed by how quickly humans could shift their entire industrial capability to focus on a single goal. Their own society, despite its advanced technology, would have needed months of planning to attempt such a massive reorganization. Back at the fleet, the U.S. endeavor had been joined by vessels from a dozen nations. Chinese engineers worked alongside American technicians. Russian space crews coordinated with Japanese teams. Old political rivalries were forgotten in the face of the massive challenge before them. Captain Miller watched from his bridge as another converted cargo ship arrived, it hallmarked with both UN colors and the flags of 3 different nations. "You know what's remarkable?" he said to Dr. Thompson. 3 weeks ago, some of these countries barely spoke to each other. Now they're sharing their best technology and resources. Thompson nodded, checking the latest power readings from the fleet. Nothing unites people like a common goal, especially when that goal is saving lives. The Meridian first speaker requested a meeting with Earth's Coordinated Rescue Command. Through their now refined communication system, they expressed both gratitude and confusion. "Your species competes, fights, yet now you work as one. We do not understand." Director Baker smiled. "Humans are complicated. We fight, yes. We compete. But we also help each other. And right now, helping you is more important than our differences." The rescue effort faced its first major crisis when one of the power units malfunctioned. Alarms blared across the fleet as power fluctuations threatened to destabilize an entire section of the Meridian ship it was supporting. The response was immediate. Teams from 5 different nations rushed to the scene. A Brazilian engineer identified the problem while a Korean technician proposed a solution. Canadian and Egyptian space crews worked together to implement the fix, while German scientists monitored the power levels. "This is impossible," the Meridian ship's engineer commented, watching the humans work. "Different training, different languages, different methods, yet they function as one unit. That's because we're not following a perfect plan," Thompson explained as she coordinated the repair effort. "We're adapting, communicating, figuring it out as we go. Sometimes that works better than having everything prearranged." The crisis was resolved in hours, and the incident actually led to improvements in the power unit design. Human engineers from different countries contributed their ideas, leading to a more robust and efficient system. By the end of the second week, the global effort had produced enough powered units to support half the Meridian fleet. Ships from 20 nations now orbited among the alien vessels, their crews working tirelessly to install and maintain the power systems. In Geneva, Director Baker received another update. More countries were joining the effort, offering resources, ships, and personnel. Even nations with minimal space programs were contributing what they could: materials, food, medical supplies for the rescue crews. "Look at this," he said to his deputy, showing her the latest report. "We've got countries that have never launched a satellite now helping to save an alien species. If that's not humanity at its best, I don't know what is." Above Earth, the lights of human ships moved between the massive Meridian vessels like fireflies around silver trees, each one carrying hope and help from a unified Earth. No one saw the power cascade coming. One moment, the rescue operation was proceeding smoothly. The next, warning alarms blared across 3 Meridian ships simultaneously. "Report," Captain Miller demanded, watching as red warning lights flashed across his bridge displays. Dr. Thompson's voice crackled over the comm system. "The power synchronization is failing on ships 7, 9, and 12. Their life support systems are crashing." Her voice was tense but controlled. "We have maybe 2 hours before they lose atmosphere completely." 50,000 Meridian lives were at stake across the fleet, but these 3 ships held 12,000 alone. The first speaker's image appeared on the main screen, their silver skin now a pale gray with worry. "Our people cannot survive evacuation. Our bodies, the strain." Miller looked at the data streaming across his screens. The Meridians were adapted to their ship's artificial gravity and atmosphere. A sudden evacuation could kill them as surely as loss of life support. "Then we don't evacuate them," Miller said firmly. "We fix this, right here, right now." He opened a channel to all human ships in the area. "This is Captain Miller. I need every engineer, every power specialist, and every repair crew at ships 7, 9, and 12 immediately. This is not a drill." The response was immediate. Dozens of human ships broke from their current tasks, maneuvering towards the failing vessels. Dr. Thompson coordinated from Ship 7's engine room, where she and her team were already racing to stabilize the power grid. "The problem's in the convergent matrix," she reported. "Our power systems are fighting each other. The adaptation protocols can't handle the load." She paused, then added, "We need to shut everything down and restart the entire power grid." "That would leave them without life support for at least 15 minutes, Miller responded. "Better than 2 hours of watching it fail slowly," Thompson shot back. "But we'll need perfect timing. All 3 ships have to restart simultaneously, or the power imbalance will fry everything." Miller made his decision. "All teams, prepare for total power restart. We do this together." What followed was one of the most impressive displays of human coordination ever attempted in space. Teams from a dozen countries positioned themselves throughout the 3 massive ships. Each group had their assigned tasks, their movements coordinated down to the second. The Meridians watched in astonishment as these primitive beings moved with precision that matched their own highly advanced systems. There was no advanced AI coordinating them, no neural networks linking their minds. Just humans, working together, trusting each other. Shutdown commencing in 3, 2, 1. Thompson's voice echoed through every comm system. The massive ships went dark. Emergency lights cast eerie shadows as the power systems wound down to complete silence. In the darkness, thousands of Meridians held perfectly still, trusting their lives to these strange beings from Earth. The only sounds were the clicks and whirs of human tools and the steady voices of team leaders counting down the seconds. "Power up sequence, initiating," Thompson announced. "All teams, execute on my mark." Across 3 ships, hundreds of human engineers worked in perfect sync. Power units hummed to life. Conversion matrices activated. Energy began flowing through the jury-rigged systems that connected human technology to alien ships. The first few seconds were critical. If the timing was off by even a moment, the entire system would collapse. Thompson watched the power levels rise, her hand hovering over the emergency shutdown switch. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on." Lights flickered. Systems booted. For a heart-stopping moment, everything hung in balance. Then, one by one, green status lights began appearing on screens across all three ships. Life support stabilized. Artificial gravity normalized. Power levels held steady. A cheer went up from the human crews, echoing through the ship's corridors. The Meridians made their chittering sound of joy, the noise mixing with human celebration in a strange but happy chorus. On the Endeavor's bridge, Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Damage report. All systems stable, Captain," came the reply. "Power levels actually showing better efficiency than before. Dr. Thompson says the restart cleaned up some underlying issues we hadn't even noticed." The first speaker's image appeared again, their skin now returning to its healthy silver sheen. "Your people, they moved as one unit without central control. How is this possible?" Miller looked at the screen, pride evident in his voice. "That's what humans do best, Speaker. When lives are on the line, we don't need fancy systems or perfect plans. We look out for each other, we work together, and we don't give up until the job is done." Outside the ships, repair crews were already moving to strengthen the power systems, determined to prevent another crisis. The incident had proved something to both species. In space, technology was important, but the will to survive and help others was even more crucial. After the success of the emergency power restart, Dr. Thompson spent 3 days locked in her lab aboard the Endeavor. Empty coffee cups piled up as she studied the data from the crisis. Something about the power readings during the restart had caught her attention. "Captain," she called Miller at 3 in the morning, Earth time. "I need you to see this." Miller arrived to find Thompson's lab covered in holographic displays showing power flow patterns. She pointed to a particular set of readings from the restart. "Look here," she said, highlighting a section. "During the restart, for just a moment, our power systems synchronized perfectly with the Meridian quantum drive remnants. The energy patterns matched exactly." Miller rubbed his eyes, trying to follow. "What does that mean?" "It means," Thompson said with growing excitement, "we might be able to do more than just keep their life support running. We might be able to get their quantum drives working again." The next morning, Thompson presented her findings to a joint meeting of human engineers and Meridian scientists. She explained how the restart had revealed a pattern in the quantum drives that matched Earth's fusion reactor pulses at certain frequencies. "Your quantum drives aren't dead," she told the amazed Meridians. "They're just sleeping, and we might be able to wake them up." Blue, the Meridian engineer who had first doubted human methods, studied the data. "The energy patterns, they are similar, but the power required would be enormous. That's why we'll need every fusion reactor we've installed," Thompson replied, "plus a few hundred more. We're going to chain them all together and create one massive power pulse." The plan was both brilliant and terrifying in its simplicity. They would connect all the human power systems into one giant network, tying them to pulse together. The combined energy would match the frequency of the Meridian quantum drives, potentially jump-starting them back to life. "It's like pushing a car to get it started," Thompson explained to the first speaker. "We give it one big push and the engine takes over." The next week was a flurry of activity. More power units arrived from Earth. Engineers worked around the clock, connecting systems that were never meant to work together. The entire fleet became one massive power grid, with the U.S. Endeavor at its heart as the control center. The risks were enormous. If the timing was off, they could fry every system in the fleet. If the power surge was too strong, they could overload the quantum drives completely. If it was too weak, they'd waste their only chance. "All ships report ready," Miller announced from the Endeavor's bridge. The entire crew held their breath. 50,000 Meridian lives, and humanity's greatest engineering achievement hung in the balance. Thompson sat at the main engineering console, her fingers hovering over the controls. "Starting power synchronization," she announced. "All teams report in." One by one, teams across the fleet confirmed their readiness. Humans and Meridians worked side by side, each bringing their unique skills to the task. "Power levels at maximum," called out Chief Engineer Reed. "All reactors showing green." Thompson took a deep breath, beginning quantum frequency matching. Now, the ship hummed as power began building in the massive network. On screens across the fleet, energy levels rose steadily. The Meridian quantum drives, dark for so long, began to show signs of life. "Quantum resonance detected," Blue reported from his station. "The drives are responding." "Now," Thompson called out, initiating power pulse. Energy surged through the network. The lights dimmed across every human ship as power was diverted to the pulse. For a moment, everything hung in perfect balance. Then, one by one, the Meridian quantum drives began to glow. Their familiar hum, silent since the accident, filled the ships once again. Across the fleet, systems that had been dead for weeks came back to life. "It's working," Thompson exclaimed, watching as power readings stabilized across the fleet. "The quantum drives are restarting." The first speaker's voice filled the bridge, emotion clear even through the translation system. "You have done the impossible. Our ships, they live again." Miller looked out at the fleet, now glowing with its own power rather than human emergency systems. "Not impossible," he said, "just needed a different way of thinking about the problem." As system after system came back online, humans and Meridians celebrated together. They had done more than just save lives. They had proven that sometimes the most advanced solution isn't always the best one. Sometimes you just need determination, creativity, and the willingness to try the impossible. 1 month after the successful restart of the quantum drives, the Meridian fleet hung in high Earth orbit, their silver hulls now glowing with their own power. The first speaker stood on the Endeavor's bridge, addressing a combined crew of humans and Meridians. "When we first arrived in your solar system," they said, their translation now crystal clear thanks to restored systems, "we thought we had found only a primitive species. Instead, we found something far more valuable. We found friends who taught us that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." The fleet's departure was scheduled for the next day. But first, the Meridians had something to offer Earth. The first speaker gestured, and Blue stepped forward, carrying what looked like a small crystal. "This contains basic designs for some of our technology," the first speaker explained. "Not our most advanced systems. You have shown us that those are not always the most useful. Instead, we offer practical knowledge that your species can adapt and improve in your own unique way." Dr. Thompson studied the crystal with professional interest, but it was her next words that captured the true spirit of humanity. "Thank you," she said, "but you've already given us something more valuable. You've shown us that we're ready for the stars." Captain Miller watched from his command chair as human crews made their final checks on the Meridian ships. The past month had changed both species. The Meridians had learned about improvisation and thinking outside rigid systems, while humans had gained confidence in their place among the stars. "Message from Earth Command," Lieutenant Parker announced. "All ships report ready for the departure ceremony." The scene in Earth orbit was unprecedented. Vessels from every spacefaring nation formed an honor guard for the departing Meridian fleet. From massive cargo ships to small repair vessels, humanity had gathered to bid farewell to the people they had helped save. The first speaker made one final transmission, broadcast to every ship in orbit and to screens across Earth. "We came to your system as refugees, powerless and dying. We leave as friends, enriched by your ingenuity and spirit. The galaxy will know of Earth and its people, not as a primitive world, but as a civilization that understands the most powerful technology of all, the ability to adapt, to improvise, and to never give up." As the Meridian ships prepared to depart, Dr. Thompson stood with her engineering team, watching the fleet they had helped save. "You know what's funny?" she said to Chief Engineer Reed. "A month ago, we thought we were rescuing them. Turns out, they were helping us prove something to ourselves." The departure itself was spectacular. One by one, the Meridian ships activated their quantum drives. The space around each vessel seemed to shimmer and fold as they prepared to jump to faster than light speed. But they didn't leave in their usual perfect formation. Instead, each ship chose its own moment, its own path, a small but significant change in Meridian protocol, inspired by their time with humans. From the surface of Earth, the departing ships looked like new stars appearing briefly in the daylight sky before vanishing. Millions watched, knowing that humanity had passed a crucial test. They had not only made first contact, but had proven themselves worthy of joining the galactic community. In Geneva, Director Baker received the first reports from scientists studying the Meridian gift. "They gave us exactly what we needed," he told his staff. "Not their highest technology, but knowledge we can actually use and build upon. They learned from us after all." Back on the Endeavour, Captain Miller and Dr. Thompson watched as the last Meridian ship prepared to depart. The first speaker's final message played across all channels. "We will tell others of Earth, not just of your technology or your methods, but of your spirit. You have taught us that true advancement comes not from having perfect systems, but from having the wisdom to know when imperfect solutions are exactly what is needed." As the last ship vanished into faster-than-light travel, Miller turned to Thompson. "So, Doctor, what's next?" Thompson smiled, holding up the crystal the Meridians had given them. Now we start building our own future in space, and thanks to what we learned from helping them, we'll do it our way, the human way." The Endeavour turned back toward Earth, its crew tired but proud. They had done more than rescue a stranded fleet. They had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in advanced technology or perfect systems, but in their ability to face any challenge with creativity, determination, and the willingness to help others in need. Above them, the stars seemed a little closer, a little more welcoming. Humanity had taken its first real step into the galactic community, not through war or trade, but by doing what they did best, solving problems and helping those in need.